Um, Luis, thank you also for being here, and
Recording
I am
in
going
progress.
to hit our record button, so we are currently recording. So I would like to officially welcome everyone to our Regional Policy Board meeting of the Mission Valley SELPA. My name is Karen Russell. I'm the director of Mission Valley SELPA, and today is November 2nd, 2021, and we will begin our Regional Policy Board meeting. Needless to say, I'd like to begin with a big welcome to everyone. It's good to see everyone here on the Zoom. And if you don't mind, if we could go ahead and begin with introductions. Sarah, do you mind starting us off?
Good morning. My name is Sarah Kapler. I'm the Director for Special Services for New Haven Unified.
Fran English, and Director of Special Education for Fremont Unified.
Jan Hamilton, Director of Special Education for New York Unified School District.
Fabi Pascual, Director of Accounting, Fremont Unified.
Mark Triplett, the Superintendent for Newark Unified.
CJ Kamick, Superintendent, Fremont Unified.
John Thompson, Superintendent at New Haven Unified.
Larry Sweeney, Board Member of Fremont Unified.
All right, great. I appreciate the introductions, and certainly as individuals continue to present during this meeting, we can also have people introduce themselves as necessary. For additional public input, Sarah Kapler will be monitoring our Google Doc, which is open for public input. I want to do a couple of acknowledgements before we begin. One, it's Fran English's birthday, so happy birthday to you, Fran. Secondly, in the SELPA, we had Dr. Melissa Holland with Sacramento State come and present to parents within the SELPA on the mental health needs associated with coming back and having in-person learning. And as we are all very acutely aware, this is a very sensitive and timely issue for all of us. And a couple of the data or the research that Dr. Holland reviewed is that 25% of all high school students talk about worsening mental health. Dr. Holland talked also about, for those in the field of giving care, which includes teachers, administrators, nurses, doctors, that we are feeling a tremendous amount of what they call compassion fatigue. And if you think about us all starting this in March of 2020, going on, a good almost 2 years now, you can understand those kinds of feelings. So as we begin this meeting, I just want to acknowledge that a lot of us may also be feeling that stress of not just compassion fatigue, but really working hard during this pandemic. And what I felt was hopeful is that Dr. Holland ended her presentation with a couple of things, that probably one of the most important notions is that of self-care. And just like when you're traveling on an airplane and they direct you to put your oxygen mask on first, that's probably good advice for us as we kind of have that analogy as we move forward in making sure our oxygen masks are on. That, needless to say, those basics of sleep, exercise, nutrition are always things we need to be mindful about. But two other things is our social supports and how we get that support of listening and being able to vent and feel supported. And secondly, and this is something a little bit newer, but what is our self-narrative? And is our self-narrative one of kind of doomsday, or is our self-narrative one of how we're going to take this one step at a time, and what steps are we going to take to get the support we need to be able to feel positive about moving forward? So we will definitely have Dr. Holland's whole presentation attached to our SELPA website if you want to go through that in any greater detail. Without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and begin sharing, and we will begin first with a very quick overview for everyone here of our the SELPA. And I'm going to bring up our agenda for today, and it is attached to the SELPA, or attached to the agenda. the Mission Valley SELPA. And again, I apologize for this being a repeat for our superintendents and several of our board members, but the Mission Valley SELPA consists of New Haven, Newark, and New Haven Unified School Districts. The chart in front of you kind of outlines who our superintendents are, who their secretaries are, who our wonderful hardworking directors are, as well as their support assistants. Right now, we have had Andrea Chamberlain filling in the role of an interim CAC representative, and Andrea's done a real phenomenal job of creating our parent newsletter. I'm very excited to say that later in our agenda, we'll be going over 3 applications for the Community Advisory Committee this year, and that will be Andrea Chamberlain, Daisha Gardner, as well as Kanika Kanan. Bobby Platt is our esteemed SELPA secretary, and Robbie Pascal has done a phenomenal job as our accounting director addressing issues related to the SELPA. Holly Midyet is our new data clerk. She's been in that role for about a year now. Carly Kim, Lorraine Niera run the Transition Partnership Program, and Allison Warner is our Infant Services Coordinator. Couple things as we move down through this, looking at the California dashboard data, we look at, again, Newark, 5,669 students, New Haven, a little over 11,000, and Fremont, a little over 35,000. This was collected from the California dashboard. Number of students with disabilities is in the boxes 2 below. I think one of the things that's most interesting about the number of students with disabilities within each of the districts is the percentage of those districts. So with Newark, 12% of the enrollment are students identified with a disability. In New Haven, it's 10.3, and in Fremont, it's 9.2. Our numbers have changed very slightly regarding how the SELPA is broken up, but basically almost 11% of the SELPA is Newark, 21% of the SELPA is New Haven, and almost 68% of the SELPA is Fremont. At this point, and Robbie's going to have much more information, the data seems to indicate that all 3 of the districts are in declining enrollment. I tried to include a fun fact about each of the cities that are each of the districts, and interestingly, Newark was named after a castle in Port Glasgow, Scotland. Union City was a combination of 2 previous towns, Alvarado, one of California's governors, and New Haven, which was named after New Haven, Connecticut. Fremont, as we know, was named after John C. Fremont, becoming a bit more of a more controversial figure. But the one thing that I could pull out there was John C. Fremont's father was a teacher. So I thought that was an interesting fact. So that gives you a little bit of a background regarding our SELPA. And let's go ahead now and return to our agenda.
Karen, before you do, sorry, I don't think I have a raised hand function. Can you just go back to that, Kanika?
Sure.
Unless you move, I think you need to be in the Fremont column for parents. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm still a Fremont parent.
Oh,
Okay.
And
I
I
wanted to
actually,
correct it since it's being recorded.
I actually did just correct that on the document.
Thank you.
Okay, just trying to kind of move some stuff out of the way here so I can get back to the document.
Sorry, Karen, if I may too, it looks like on the document, thank you for all that information, that for Newark, we should, ours should look closer to what I believe New Haven had in terms of 1 comprehensive high school, 1 alternative ed, and 1 independent study.
Okay, I will make sure that that gets changed as well then.
Thank you.
Thank you for those corrections. As many of you know, at this point, Governor Newsom passed a bill, AB 361, and for public meetings, they are to return back to in-person settings unless that board votes and finds that to do so was going to pose an unacceptable health risk. So that being said, our next regional policy board meeting will be in person, and that will be January 18th, 2022 at 9 o'clock. And that would be, of course, as we're all kind of aware of now, unless other circumstances dictate. Okay. Our first item on our agenda for action is going to be the minutes of the June 22nd board meeting. So if you haven't had a chance to review those, if you don't mind taking a look at those, and then I will be looking to see if we have a motion to approve the minutes.
This is Larry. I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Larry. Or do we have a second?
This is CJ. I'm happy to second.
Thank you, CJ. All right. So those that are going to be voting are going to be our superintendents as well as our board members. Bobby, what is the easiest way for our superintendents and board members to indicate how they are voting for you?
It would be, I don't know what's the easiest. If anybody has abstention or a nay, to voice that. Otherwise, I just then would assume everybody is in agreement.
All right, so let's go ahead and I will ask the question. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please indicate by a yay.
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 Any,
Yay.
anyone who is not in approval of the minutes? Okay, we'll see that as a 0, and then any abstentions? Okay, the minutes now then have approved with approval from CJ, Mark, John, Larry, and Bowen. Okay. All right, let's move on then to item number 3 on our agenda. And this is the Mission Valley SELPA's final allocation for year-end closing. Before we do so, and Mr. Pascal will bring us through this, I just want to highlight the work that Robbie has been doing on behalf of the SELPA. You will see as we go through these documents, the degree of detail, as well as attention that he's put together, helping us to get a picture of what's going on in the financial scene for the SELPA. But a tremendous amount of work's been done by Robbie as he's gathered the data that informs these financials, as well as when we go into our maintenance of effort and projected efforts. So let's go ahead, and Robbie, I'm going to open up the document called the final allocations for the year and closing. And if you could please guide us through these.
Yes. So the document in front of you was created last July 15. This data is needed for year-end closing for fiscal year 2021. So at that time, this is created so that school district can close the books with right numbers, or I would say updated numbers coming from California Department of Ed. So usually I go to CDE website to gather this data for the Mission Valley AB 602, which is a special ed funding, the state funding for AB 602, and then also the different grant award notifications that we received from California Department of Ed too. So if you scroll down to the, I think, third document or third page, Karen. So what you're seeing on your screen is your assumptions or what we had. So this document here is this is the funding exhibit that I usually get from California Department of Education. This is similar to their exhibit. So section 1 shows our ADA and the rates that goes with it. The ADA, we are in declining. So we are using at this time, we are being funded at um, the 1920 ADA. So our 2021 is much lesser than 1920. So same thing as regular for local control funding formula. We have the flexibility of being funded on the current ADA or prior year ADA. So
And
um,
Robbie, not to interrupt, but it benefits us to use the prior ADA because at this point that's larger.
yes, the and then section B shows the rate that and in 1920 the rate was $557.27. However, when the governor signed the budget for 2021, it was increased to $625. So there's improvement on the rate per ADA of how much we should be that we're getting. So that's good news. Section C is the local property tax. The 3.4 million is an estimate that we receive data from Alameda County Office of Ed, and this is based on I think data from coming from April of 2021. However, at the time after this time, Alameda County Office of Ed did updated it, and what I mentioned in the assumption is to use the most current funding for the property tax coming from ACOE. Um, then section D is just the rate of the program specialists and regionalized services. That includes including the necessary small schools for our for PS and RS, which the district is not. PS and RS apportionment, you would see it. We receive $836,000 for it. Our low incidence, we receive at 945,000. This is a huge increase from previous years. Um, and so that funding is there. Out of home care, it's $50,000. And for the NPS extraordinary cost pool, for the superintendents, if you recall, just a few months ago, I think it was last month, where I requested signature for your 2021 NPS extraordinary cost pool certification. So I received those data from the different districts of how much they're claiming. But here we don't show it because we don't know how much we're actually going to get and how much each district is going to claim. And then section I um, is the summary. So in AB 602, we're going to get 28.2 million for the our allocation for program specialists and regionalized services, $836,000. Low incidence is 945, and out of home care is 50,000, which is a total of $30.1 million. So next section is the distribution of it. So we get our distribution is based on current year. So even though we are funded by prior year ADA, the SELPA decided at that time to use current year ADA to distribute the funding. So section 1 to section 5 are all of the AB 602 funding. So 68 68.28% goes to Fremont, which is 20.5 million. 20.8% goes, or 6.2 million goes to New Haven, and 3.2 million, or 10.84% goes to Newark. And then the section below, just like I mentioned, is the special education property tax based on April 2021. And then from section 7 to below are all of of the grant awards that we received. I know some of these, especially local assistance grant, even the grant came in very late. And just want to update everybody, up to now, the actual cash has not come in to the districts. So even as a SELPA AU, we have not received the 9.1 million total for local assistance. I don't know what happened at the federal level or at the state level, but we have not received the bulk of the cash of the grant awards, especially the federal grants. And that ends my presentation for the 2021 SELPA allocation. Is there any questions?
Okay. Thank you, Robbie. If there are no other questions, do we have a motion to approve? I do have a question, Robbie. Will we then bring this final allocation document back when we have the extraordinary costs added to it?
We usually don't. When we get the funding, I do provide the allocation to the different districts of how much we claimed. Basically, the districts knows how much they claimed.
Okay.
The question is, how much are we going to be funded? Because it depends if the state is going to give us dollar per dollar for the claims. But do remember, the extraordinary cost pool is based on anything that exceeded 86. What my recollection is, $86,000 and some dollars. So some usually the state do deficit the funding, meaning we don't get dollar for dollar. It's either they call it a deficit factor, which is an old term, or a proration factor. It just depends on what the funding or how much funding that the government has.
This is Larry. I have a question.
Yes,
Sure,
sir.
Larry.
Just a quick question, Robbie, thank you for the report. I know that there's a sizable amount of millions of dollars that we don't know where it's supposed to be coming from, state or federal level. Two things. One, that means we are paying it as we go as districts, I'm sure. And the other is there anything we can do to expedite that? Is there a point of contact that we as our staff can take that load off you to find out where that money is and when it's going to be coming?
Yes, actually, even though we did not receive the grant award letter yet, or we received the grant award late in the year, we were still filing for claims. We use an old claim form or a reimbursement form. We just changed the year, and currently right now, I think it's last week that we contacted CDE and said, hey, where is the funding for our grant award for our grants? And they said that they're behind.
Thank you, Robbie. That I don't know if everyone here understands when the state says they're behind, that means they have no clue at all, and it's not a high priority for them. But thank you very much for keeping us aware of it, and I'm sure we'll bring it up with our legislators as we meet with them. Thank you, Robbie.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Larry. All right, then do we have a motion to approve the Mission Valley SELPA final allocation?
I move that we.
Do we have any abstentions? All right, without hearing any nays or abstentions, it will have passed unanimously. And now let's move on to the final administrative unit operating budget. Robbie?
Okay. So the report in front of you is the administrative unit. Sorry, I should have put their final operating budget, not a projected operating budget as a title head. So This is how we ended up with the AU budget as of June 30, 2021. The budget, we have a budget of $286,000. The money is coming from carryover, and 216,000 of it is coming from current year allocation. Uh, and of course, we have received all of the um, allocation for the revenue. Um, and then here we are with the expenditures. So we have the SELPA director, 45,000 plus the benefits, costing $47,000. The clerical support, uh, totally including benefits, $3,900. And then accounting director stipend and benefits, $5,000, including, yeah, of course, the stipend and the benefits. Other expenses that we've incurred during the year, um, and then from administrative expenses up to how much we have uh, been billed for the SEIS integration cost. And at the little part at the bottom where you would see carryover from prior year, that is the allocation that was approved by the SELPA or the SELPA board, the regional policy board, of the amount of carryover that that we did not spend in 1920. It was decided to allocate that to the SELPA members by the prior year ADA percentages. Um, so Fremont received 48,000, New Haven 14, and Newark $7,000. Um, as the and then admin fee, because Fremont Unified is the administrative unit, based on the expenditures that was charged to the SELPA AU, 8% was charged by Fremont Unified to the SELPA. And then, of course, $8,300 is our reserve. So overall, we received 286,000. We've spent 215. So we do have a carryover of 71,000, which you will see on the 21-22 projected AU operating budget for this year.
And I'm assuming that 71,000 is going to be redistributed back to the 3 districts.
Yes.
Okay.
And that ends my report. Is there any questions?
Thank you, Robbie. If there are no further questions, do we have a motion to approve the final AU operating budget for the SELPA?
I move to
So
approve.
moved.
This is Larry.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please indicate by aye.
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 Do we have any nays? Any abstentions? All right, the final administrative U operating budget's been unanimously approved. Thank you.
Excuse me, who was the second? I didn't see your,
CJ,
thank you.
my pleasure.
As we move down to item number 5, a couple of things I wanted to begin with, and that is a just a graphic regarding special education funding in the state of California. And again, I think I will begin by saying full funding is not there. If you look at this graphic to the side here, you can see that there is still a significant funding gap in terms of special ed being completely funded. And as you look at the pie-shaped graph over here, you can see it at about statewide average is 67% of the funds used to pay for special ed come from local contributions. The positive side is that we are, in addition to the amount that each district gets for every student, the amount that our students with IEPs are additionally afforded is increasing. And that this last year, that has come up to $715 per student. We also have received a grant from the state for $69 million for additional support for mental health. As Robbie had alluded to in his last description of the budget, our funds for low incidence students has really increased dramatically. So low incidence being our students that have been identified as deaf, blind, and or orthopedically impaired. Lastly, we have a couple of additional funds that are available to districts. These are one-time funds that were in the 21-22 budget, 550 million, another 100 million for dispute prevention, as well as the 450 for learning recovery. Our preschool grants are continuing this next year, and we have more control locally on how we want to spend our mental health dollars. So those have been some positives in terms of the budget. The other thing is, if we look on in general, school services puts out a newsletter. And one of the things that they highlight is that despite the pandemic, the California economy has continued to flourish. And that's good news for the state revenue, which this, I believe, article had indicated that the state revenue is 27% above the forecast for the year to date. And as a result of that, the current administration under Governor Newsom is going to have a lot more options on how to spend that money. And the SELPA is definitely at the tables there advocating for that money to help fully fund special education. With that being said, that kind of frames then the projections that Robbie is going to share with you. Item number 5, they are the 2021 projections for the SELPA allocation. And we'll pull that up. And Robbie, if you can guide us through that, please.
So this document is for the projection for 21-22 SELPA allocation. Just like what Karen said, for this year, we are funded per ADA for in the amount of $715. This is an increase. It's a better increase than just projecting $650 that was proposed by the governor in his May revise. So yes, funding is there. Funding is getting higher. However, it is still not fully funded, just like Karen said. ADA is based on the highest SELPA's current, prior year, or second prior year. Because of the pandemic, 1920, 2021 are the same ADA. So we are using the 2021 attendance funding, or basically it's 1920 ADA. And just like what Karen had shown in the previous facts for the SELPA, is that the 3 districts are in declining enrollment. Proration factor still projected at 0%. It was 0 last year in 2021. So we're projecting the same thing for 21-22. Up to now, California Department of Ed has not released their funding exhibit in their website. Special ed property tax, we are projecting using the P annual coming from Alameda County Office of Ed that was dated August 17 or received on August 17. Our special ed federal, state, and local grants, they're all projecting using last year's. And just like what, again, Karen mentioned, is that we received 2 new grants, the dispute prevention and dispute resolution, and the learning recovery support. And that would be, the dollar amount would be showing in our funding exhibit. If you can scroll down, Karen.
Thank you, Robbie. And for our participants, may I please remind everyone, unless you are speaking, if you could please make sure that you are on mute, just helps all of us then be able to hear the speaker with a little more clarity. So thank you. All right.
So this is a funding exhibit that I'm projecting. As you can see, our current year ADA is projected at 47,000 ADA. And just mention also that 2021 and 1920 ADA, you would see that our ADA is 49,958, or that's 968.88. So the prior year and second prior year are the same ADA. Nobody submitted an attendance report in the fiscal year 2021 where everybody is in distance learning. And in section B, I highlighted the base rate of $715 because that is how we're going to be funded. If we use if we were funded by the just by the COLA, it would only be $650.31. So that's a good size increase. So for the adjusted grant or entitlement, we're going to be receiving 35.7 million. However, that 35.7 million doesn't mean that we're all going to get that from the state. 3.4 million of it is going to be through the property tax for special ed. So the net is $32.2 million coming from the state. Other parts, section D, for the program specialists and regionalized services, just showing the rate, the actual amount that we're going to get for program specialists and regional services is 857,000. And then at low incidence, the same amount, assuming our pupil count and our the rate, we're going to receive $945,000. Out of home care is $50,000, and of course, section I shows the summary. So overall, we're expecting $34.1 million coming from AB 602. If you can scroll down, the last page is our distribution exhibit. I'm section 1 to section 5. The total of that is 67.64%, which is 23 million is going to go to Fremont, 7.2 or 21.1% is going to Newark, New Haven, and Newark is 3.8 or 11.17% for that. So a total of $34.1 million. So based from the previous projection that we did, and the first one that we projected way back in June, it is an increase of almost $3.2 million. We projected that in not using the ADA or the variances for ADA and the variances for the rates, the base rate, the total increase from previous projection is $3.2 million. So we were projecting almost $31 million in June. Special ed property tax, again, this is based on last year's. And again, on local grants, all of our federal, state, and local grants, these are all projection using last year's grants. And hopefully this year we'll get the grant award letter sooner so that we can get our cash faster. Because just like what I think I mentioned earlier, that we received the grant award letter late, and then we still submit our expenditure report, our reimbursement claims But because the grant award is not there, they could not disperse any cash to us. So that's the hardship that we had for the special ed program. And if you can scroll down some more, Karen, can show you the funding some more at page 2 of 2. I highlighted the two new grants, the dispute prevention and dispute resolution number 16 and also number 17 learning recovery support. Using the prior year ADA, this is the distribution of those two new grants. And just want to let everybody know that this allocation was also provided already to the SELPA members, fiscal directors, so that they can incorporate this in their first interim reporting. And that ends my report.
Okay. Any questions?
Karen,
Thank-
so one thing that community
Yes.
members might not be aware of that many of us know is that CDE is still not working in person, and that likely impacted their ability to award the grants timely. So, you know, even though school districts are sort of fully back, CDE has been extra slow. So that likely impacts things like grant awards.
Absolutely, Sarah. Yeah. Okay. If then there are not any other questions, do I have a motion to approve the projection for the Mission Valley SELPA allocation?
This is Larry, move to approve.
Thank you, Larry. And do we have a second?
Second, from Mark.
Thank you, Mark. All those in favor of approving the projection for the Mission Valley SELPA allocation, please indicate by aye.
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 Any nays? Any abstentions? All right, then we have the projection for the Mission Valley SELPA allocation for 21-22 unanimously approved. Bobby, did you get the second for that?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Great, okay. We have two more financial items. I know one of our board members has a hard stop, so I'm going to ask that we kind of continue at our pace. Robbie, do you mind bringing us through item number 6, which is the Mission Valley SELPA Administrative Unit projected operating costs for this current year?
Yes, ma'am.
Oops. That's not it. Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's not
hang
the
on.
one.
It should be. Oh, we might have not attached the right budget. So let's do this. Bobby, I'm going to ask if you don't mind kind of going back and checking if we can make sure that the correct budget is attached from Robbie's notes. And then Robbie, do you mind in the interim skipping to number 7 and leading us through the maintenance of effort documents?
No problem. I can start there. So, every districts in California has to do the maintenance of effort. And there's two parts of the maintenance of effort. They call it SIMA and they call it SIMBA. SIMA is comparing prior year actuals, which is 1920, and comparing it to 2021 actuals. We have to either spend the same dollar amount or spend higher than the previous year. And so that is SIMA. SIMBA is comparing 2021 actuals with 21-22 budgets. There's some changes in the calculation. So out of all of the financial reports for special ed, the maintenance of effort is the most tedious one. both the directors of fiscal services in the SELPA members and also at the AU uh, have to contribute on this one. And this time it was more difficult because of the COVID. We we spent less than in 2021 than in 1920. Because in 2021 we're all fully distance learning. There's no we didn't hire that much subs. We didn't do any conferences. We didn't do overtime or given extra duty for professional development. There's not that much expenditures on those. So each of the district has to uh, find ways to do some exclusions or exemptions to the rule of spending more or less than the prior year. So with the assistance of the special ed director, um, we were able to put up not only for Fremont, but also for the other districts, the two other districts, and come out with some exemptions to the rule. So from if you scroll down some more, I just wanted to let you know and be aware that there is a page number that I included in each of these documents. And you would see it if you scroll down some more at the bottom, Karen, of this page. There is a page number on the lower, oops, up. Oh, you went to, there's a page number on the lower right-hand corner, and you would see 1. So that's the page number. So I just want to let you know from page 1 to page 65, no, not 65, page 1 to page 61, each of the districts, SIMA and SIMBA's uh, maintenance of effort. So, and then I'll just scroll to, if you can go, Karen, to page 62.
Again, as we're scrolling through this document, you can see the degree of detail and the effort that Robbie has put in. And this year has been exceptionally difficult when our expenditures at districts have been, unprecedented in terms of what we didn't pay for and what we needed to pay for. So I want to again really commend Robbie for the work that he's done with this. See if there's a way I can scroll faster through here.
So all of the pages, while Karen is scrolling, page 62 to 69 is the summary of all of those pages. After you do the state format of the maintenance of effort, I have to compile it and ask the three directors in the three SELPA members to confirm and sign what I have done. In the past, I requested that those reports be completed by the site directors or the fiscal directors. But because of time sensitivity, I prepared them and then I asked for the fiscal directors to review it.
I'm going to ask that those of you that are already online, that hopefully you will have been able to pull up your the maintenance of effort documents on your computer, and you might be referencing those already as I try to still continue to pull these up here. Do you want to go over those kind of summaries in front of you then, Robbie, as we're doing this still?
Yes. So hold on, let me. had it already. Somehow I lost it. So page 62 is just a little uh, showing the different tests, which is attachment E 62, 63, and 64 up to 66. If you are on page 67, this is for Fremont. 68 is for New Haven, and page 69 is for Newark. So it has the history of all of the maintenance of effort from 2011-12 to 2020-21. And then the last column or the last row um, would show the 2021-22. If you're going to look at the column for 2021 for and you would see if the test, the MOE has passed or not. And it will tell you there's some pass or fail. For the maintenance of effort, you just need to pass one of the tests. And there is 4 tests. Um, so for Fremont, you would see in 2021 expenditures, total expenditures was 85 million. And it says there, pass with exemptions. And what we have there is underneath it, it has $6.3 million. And for Newark or New Haven, $28.2 million, pass with exemption, and there's an exemption of $1.1 million. For Newark, so previously was New Haven, in Newark, 2020, 2020-21, 10.7 million. And in the first column, it failed by amount of $1.2 million. But you would notice that in the different columns ahead, you would see for Newark, it would be fail, fail, then pass with exemption, and then fail again. And then, but that overall result, did we pass our MOE? And we did. So each district pass one of the tests. So that means we meet the maintenance of effort. However, so I mentioned that each of the district has a exemption that you have to do. For Fremont Unified School District, if you look at page 8, for New Haven Unified School District, if you look at page 27, and for Newark Unified School District, please look at page 46. So those pages that I mentioned, Fremont page 8, New Haven page 27, and Newark page 46 shows the exemption that we have to come up to pass the maintenance of effort. So I'm going to look at New Haven, Fremont, and on page 8, there is the exemptions. So there are only 5 places that we can do exemptions on. One is voluntary departure of employees or related personal services, a decrease in enrollment of children and disabilities, termination of obligations. One of these is non-public agency, non-public schools, termination of costly expenditures for long-term purchases, such as equipment, acquisition of equipment, or construction of school facilities. And the 5th one is assumption of cost of high cost funded, operated by the special ed agency. So each of the district has to find those exceptions. And for Fremont, we did all in exemption 1 and exemption 3. Just like what I said earlier, during the pandemic, staff did not hire that much substitutes or do extra hours or overtime, um, because there's no professional development. Um, Second exemption, we did because of also distance learning. Only 32 special ed students were transported compared to 736. So transportation is one because we're all in distance learning. We don't need transportation costs for special ed kids. We have open positions that we didn't fill during the pandemic. Um, there is a decreased cost in non-public agency and non-public schools. For Fremont, is almost $1.3 million, or it's $1.3 million. Um, and then decrease on stirs on behalf. This is the GASB 68 conferences and mileage. So that's $981,000. For New Haven, if I'm going to look at page 27, so they did exception 1 and 3, same thing as Fremont. So, which is the voluntary departure uh, for or of personnel related services, $700,000. 3B, some of the students in New Haven for special ed graduated already. Um, and then the big one is 3C, no longer needs a program special ed. So that might be non-public school, non-public agency. So there's a decrease of $343,000. Total all for New Haven is $1.1 million. And if we're going to look at Newark, which is in page 46, same thing. Their exemption is 1 and 3. Um, so decrease in transportation need, 600,000. Special ed hourly or subs, 332. Decrease in need for psychologists, $327,000. Total for Newark is $1.278 million. So those are the exceptions that were only allowed by the state uh, for uh, submitting an exemption for special ed to maintain or to pass the maintenance of effort. So going back to page 67, 68, and 69. So the good thing is we did all pass. However, but we have to do the exemptions because of the pandemic. Uh, the, the last row is comparing 21-22 budget with the actuals of 2021, and each of the district passed. So there's no exemption that is needed for that particular um, um, year. So once the regional policy board approves this, I will be sending this to California Department of Ed. I am guessing that they would probably need the details of the exceptions, but the most important is submitting the report to CDE to meet the deadline. And I
Thank you.
hope it wasn't confusing, but this is the tedious work that I have to do, and also the fiscal directors of the other SELPA members.
And we thank you, Robbie. We really understand that not only is it involved and, as you said, maybe tedious work. It also takes a lot of good advanced critical thinking skills to be able to creatively look at these issues of maintaining effort, particularly in situations like you talked about, when we're really busing 736 kids every year, and then during the pandemic it goes down to 32. And for those of our community members and others on this meeting right now, maintenance of effort is a legislatively established concept which says that districts must maintain their previous level special education budgets. And the reason this was done is so that in tough times that special ed wouldn't be an area that districts cut when they need to cut. So therefore protecting the funding that does exist for students with disabilities. This obviously last year was quite an exception in terms of how we look at funding and how funding was configured, expenses were configured. Do we have any other questions? And I hope that our superintendents and board members were able to pull up that, that information via their own computers. I apologize for the technical glitch on that. Any other questions on the maintenance of effort? Okay. Without then further ado, I would ask that if we could please get a motion to approve the SELPA maintenance of effort, SEMBA, SEMB documents.
I move that we approve SELPA maintenance effort SEMA SEMB document.
Thank you, Mr. Zhang. Do we have a second?
This is Larry. I'll second.
Thank you, Larry. We have a motion to approve the Mission Valley SELPA maintenance of effort documents. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we have item number 7 has been approved unanimously. We have 2 more action items, and so this number 6 on our agenda is our projected operating budget for the 21-22 school year, and I believe we have the right budget to pull up now. This is going to be the operating budget for the administrative unit. Okay, and Mr. Pascal, do you mind please guiding us through this document?
Yes. In front of you is our projection for 21-22 AU operating budget as of October 26. The first part is our revenues. I mentioned to you that we have a carryover from last year. We didn't spend it all. So our carryover is $71,000. Our revenue allocation projection is $236,000. So an overall revenue projection of $307,000. So going to our expenditures, the SELPA director, we budgeted $48,000, but just want to make sure that you're aware that the actual stipend is currently at $45,000. Same thing with the clerical and same thing with the accounting director. Even though the board approved the budget from last time that we met, the stipend actually did not change. But the budget was approved. Other administrative expenses and other expenses we have spent on community advisory committees of $345, either spent or encumbered, meaning that there is a purchase order out there for that kind of expenditures. We have conferences of $1,400, dues and membership $2,700. We have a consultation services. I believe that is for staff development of $850. We have some small charges already for SAYS, $3,300. So overall, our budget is $259 with $65,000 expended and still $194,000 remaining to be spent for the entire year. One thing that Karen did mention, and I mentioned that the carryover of 71,000, if, oh, I was already assuming, sorry about my comments on that one. The carryover from prior year, if the the regionalized policy board approve the distribution of that carryover of $71,000, $48,000 going to go to Fremont. New Haven is going to get 15,000, and then Newark is going to get $8,000. So using the prior year ADA of 68.06, 20.97%, and 10.97%, that would be the distribution of the $71,000. So I apologize that I already put their RPB approval of November 2nd.
Okay, thank you very much, Robbie. Do we have any other questions on the projected operating budget for the SELPA? Okay, without any other questions, do we have a motion to approve the operating budget?
This is Larry, move to approve.
Thank you, Larry. Do we have a second?
It's John, I'll second.
Thank you, John. All right, we have a motion that's been seconded to approve the operating budget for the 21-22 school year for the Mission Valley SELPA. All those in favor, please indicate by aye.
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 Any nays? Okay. Any abstentions? All right, that item then would approve. Again, given our time constraints on some of our members, I'd like for us to move through to item number 14, which is also an action item. It's also an action item that I'm exceptionally excited about because we have 3 outstanding community members that are eager to begin forming our board of our community advisory committee. So for approval today to our regional policy board, we have Daisha Gardner, who has a child at Horner Junior High School. In Daisha's application, she talks about wanting to build resources to work to help educate our parent and family community, as well as be an advocate for all students with special needs. Many of you are already familiar with Kanika, who also has a student in high school, which blows my mind, I can't believe right now, but has also been a longtime advocate for all students with special needs, has contributed significantly over the years as a previous CAC member, and is also very involved in our greater community, working with family resource centers. And then lastly, we have Andrea Chamberlain, who is a parent from the New Haven Unified School District. And Andrea has been working tirelessly this whole last year as kind of our sole CAC representative, writing and designing just an incredible newsletter for our extended community. So at this point, what I would like to do, unless there's an objection, I'd like to put all 3 applications on the agenda with a motion to approve all 3 as CAC board members moving forward for the remainder of this, or for their terms.
I move that we approve all 3 applications for the new CAC board members.
A second.
Thank you, Mr. Zhang. Thank you, Mark. Then I will put the motion out there. Do we have, please indicate by yay approving these board members.
Yay.
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 Do we have any nays? Any abstentions? Fantastic. Then our action is that all 3 are approved to serve as CAC board members moving forward. I believe that some of you may be attending this meeting, and do we have any comments that anyone would like to make from our new board members?
Hi, I'm new. I'm Daisha Gardner, and I just thank you guys all for approving me to be a part of the board. I find this to be a very important a group to be a part of, and I think it's a great work that you guys are doing for our children. I have a son that has an IEP, and I work tirelessly as a parent to ensure that he has all the resources and all the budgeted accommodations that the district can afford. So I appreciate all of you guys' efforts, and I am excited to be a part of the work that you're doing for our children within the community of Fremont and New Haven and Newark as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Daisha. And I can't say how important your voice, Kanika's, Andrea's, and all those of our parents are as we move forward in this work. And so I'm so excited to have you guys informing, advising, giving feedback, and it's really important. And again, you know, oftentimes that's good. That's sometimes critical feedback, or it's feedback that might contain some conflict in it. And that's the nature of us as districts working together, understanding needs, and hopefully moving forward, providing better programs and services for our kids. Great.
I agree. Thank you.
Great. All right. As I said, I know some of our board members may need to get going. If you do, thank you so much for participating. I know how valuable all of your time is. We do have the rest of our agenda to go through, so I am going to continue there unless there are any other comments or questions.
Karen, could I just jump in for a minute with a question? Congratulations to the new CAC board members. Really, really appreciative of you being willing to step in and take leadership in that way. I noticed on the original sheet there was that said vacant with Newark on the CAC. What do we need to do to? We want to correct that. What do we need to do to get our representative from Newark?
What I would probably recommend is if you are having any kind of specific parent meetings in Newark, to mention that certainly a place within the CAC board is available to them. We do continue to make that announcement at all of our SELPA events. Certainly if there are some members that your particular SPED leadership would even want to go out into your parent community and recruit, we always are welcoming of any kind of participants of the committee.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Dr. Hamilton and I can follow up and recruit some fantastic Newark members.
Yeah, that would be great. And in the meantime, I will give a shout out. Andrea has been a fabulous representative for all three of the districts as she served this last year. And it's been my experience that our parents that have served on the community advisory committee have been really good in representing all students. So we'll hopefully get someone from Newark, but in the meantime, know that certainly the needs of the community are being represented. Okay, I'll move on to item number 8. And item number 8 is a snapshot of our SELPA, and it is the CalPAD report for all 3 of our districts and the breakdown of all of the different areas in which a student may qualify for special education, and then what the numbers are within our respective districts. This is an important report. Oftentimes as our district SPED directors or superintendents are kind of looking at how our districts are identifying students and what numbers in what categories exist. So this is a reference. One of the things that's always interesting is certainly our students with specific learning disabilities typically are the largest percentage of students that we are serving with IEPs. But again, our numbers on students with autism or solely speech impairments is oftentimes coming in next highest. So again, this is a resource and a reference. These numbers were as of June 2021. Items number 9 and number 10, I won't go into great detail. Number 9 is the revised targets. So for all school districts throughout the state of California, the districts are held to certain targets. And these targets are very important because then districts are evaluated whether they are in compliance or not. So for example, a target might be that it is expected that students with IEPs graduate within 4 years, and it's expected that 75% of all students with IEPs are going to graduate with a regular diploma. And then each district is held accountable for this target. These targets aren't random. The targets are made with federal guidance, and every 6 years, the state has to come together and develop these targets. So we're going into a new cycle of targets, and the revised targets that you can see that'll be attached to number 9 are those that are going to be presented to the State Board of Education in California this month. There have been some changes. One of the things that I talked about, which has been a problem for us as districts, is that for students with IEPs, oftentimes they don't graduate within 4 years, that we have the ability for our students to continue on until age 22 as they may need. And so we'll be no longer using that 4-year cohort as an indication that the students are graduating and getting their diploma. So probably our graduation rates are going to look a little bit better as that target has been refined. Again, I encourage members to take a look at these revised targets. If there's any other feedback, feel free to give me a call, and I can also share that information with our representatives at the state. Secondly, along those lines, the state is also in the process of looking at a IEP template for the entire state. As it is right now, districts have the option of what kind of an IEP template they choose to use. That being said, there are requirements of that template that are federally required as well as state requirements. Most districts throughout the state of California use the system on the Special Education Information System that's commonly referred to as SACE, which is an electronic form of recording IEPs. There are pros and cons to a statewide IEP, but attached there is the work group that's working on that right now, and it's very likely that that will go through within the next year. Item number 11 is a little bit more important, and as you heard Robert Pascal talk about earlier, there have been 2 grants available to school districts or SELPAs. One is the Learning Recovery, and this was a grant for a little over $3 million to our SELPA. The second was for Alternative Dispute Resolution, and that was again for a little over $500,000 to the districts. These funds became available in the beginning of September, with plan proposals needing to be submitted on the 1st of October. And as you can imagine, to be able to meet with all 3 directors, for the directors to get information from their groups was a big call. So in writing both these plan proposals, I'll pull up our Learning Recovery first. We were asked to address specific areas that have been impacted. We were asked to put together objectives and metrics, and then also the students served. In writing both the plan for the Learning Recovery as well as the plan for the ADR, they have been written with a very large degree of kind of scope and generality, so that as these monies come, or as districts further develop how they want to spend the Learning Recovery funds, that there's latitude within there to do so. Basically, what we are looking to do is having each be able to put together a continuum of additional support services, and those can range from additional sessions, online supports, summer school programs, individual coaching, and this is going to be for students with IEPs that have been identified as those requiring additional supports related to COVID learning recovery needs. I will reiterate again that all of the areas that we are talked about being impacted, additional supports, behavioral supports, these have all been very generally written, objectives-wise and metrics, to be able to be modified, addended for the district's use as general. We had anticipated that the budget for this $1 million is going to look like a significant amount for certificated salaries, paying for extra duty services. We'd also have cleric or classified support services. Benefits are included there. Materials and supplies as we look to supplemental programs, consumables, and that we have a good part of the budget available also for other operating costs, specifically that may relate to training and or contracted services. Yes, questions?
Well, so I would just want to say thank you for writing the plan. I know you called and consulted with us, and I appreciate that. I also want to thank State SELPA for releasing this money. They really advocated for it hard, and it's nice to actually get some money. One of the things, I had the opportunity to serve as interim in the last 2 SELPA meetings, and one thing that I think is really noteworthy is that not only do districts have maintenance of effort responsibilities, but the state does as well. And this would increase our maintenance of effort. What's unusual about that is that while this money will need to be ongoing, we don't know what category it's going to end up in. And so it could end up in extra preschool money or extra low incident money. And so I think that we just all need to be aware and talk to our fiscal departments about what will this money look like in the out years when we continue to get it in different categories, and make sure that we pay attention to that for our maintenance of efforts.
Thank you, Sarah. And again, as we move into the second, the alternative dispute resolution, we certainly want to continue to grow our efforts within all 3 of our districts, training our staff, fostering better positive relationships with families related to developing and implementing IEPs. There also would be some monies available within this budget to contract with staff to help individuals who may be needing very specific kinds of remedies regarding their COVID-related learning loss issues. These budgets are very flexible, as Sarah talked about, and written so that districts have a lot of latitude in how they may need to spend this money. Okay. On number 12, we were in the year 1920, we had Bria Rosenthal, who was our Special Olympics coordinator, and Bria just had done a phenomenal year. She initially was involved with Judith Cameron in bringing Special Olympics to the Mission Valley SELPA, and just an incredible force in terms of coalescing groups within all 3 of the districts to have some really outstanding, wonderful Special Olympic events. And I'm hoping most of you have had the chance to attend some of those. They're probably some of the most positive and uplifting events that we provide as a SELPA. This last year, we were most fortunate to be able to hire Michelle Goddard to be our new Special Olympics coordinator. Michelle has worked for the Fremont Unified School District for close to 20 years now as a school psychologist, and Michelle comes into the role as a Special Olympics coordinator very excited. Typically, we hold 3 competitive events during the year. A soccer event in the fall, a basketball event in the spring, and then track and field, which typically New Haven hosts in May. As we all know, this year, we're doing things a little bit differently, and most boards within our SELPA have policies restricting field trips as related to COVID concerns. So it was decided that we would cancel our fall soccer event, where typically teams compete together and come from all over the district. In the meantime, Michelle is working with our classes, coordinating a fall into fitness campaign, and students are given different activities to do between October 25th and November 22nd. Students participating in those events will earn ribbons for their participation. This also increases their fitness and readiness for hopefully the events that we will continue to host in the spring and later in the school year. Michelle, I'm not sure if you're on the call at this point, but if you are, would you like to say a few words to our Regional Policy Board? Okay, I know Michelle was going to try to attend and she may have needed to go back to some other duties that she's addressing, but we're very excited to have Michelle. Okay. I have included on number 13 two of our Mission Valley CAC newsletters that have been created by our editor, Andrea Chamberlain, and those are also for reference. If anybody would like to take a look at those. Number 14, we've already done. Number 15 is a review of our schedules. Our next Regional Policy Board in person will be January 18th. The directors' meetings we have listed down below there. Community Advisory Committee meetings are listed, and we may want to schedule an additional one before February now that we have all 3 new members. We can work on that. Our CAC events, we had a meet and greet September 20th. We had a family needs assessment meeting on September 27th. Dr. Holland presented on We Can Do It, addressing mental health issues, October 18th. Our November events have been canceled, but we will be coming back strong, presenting on dyslexia on the evening of January 10th. Later in the year, we have support for our families focusing on English language learners with disabilities, another listening session, a session on transition, a session on goal writing, and then culminating our year with our recognition awards, as well as hopefully track and field in New Haven. Our SELPA priorities are always going to be focusing on our compliance and monitoring activities, our shared programs, the MOUs, Memorandums of Understanding, that we have with different agencies we work within the Bay Area, working with our Bay Area Collaborative, as well as the CAC, Alameda County SELPA directors, and then as well as the staff and training that we provide for our professionals. District directors, may I ask that you take a moment to give us quick input, and would we like to start with Fremont? Fran?
Sure, yes. So we've our staff working very hard this year. It's been a challenge, but they are rising to the task and trying to stay positive. I recently did a climate survey just to see how they were doing and to check in, and things seem to be settling down. Our biggest issue right now is students who have regressed during the pandemic. So we are working hard to address that with heavy duty intervention, which brings me to my second point, and that's our CSAS plan. We are implementing MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support, and PBIS. And we're pretty excited about moving forward with those full steam as a district. At the start of the year, we thought we were declining in special ed enrollment. That wasn't the case. Since August, we've had about 65 new, what we call 30-day interim placements. So students seem to be returning. We lost some students during the pandemic. They moved to other countries in some cases, other states, living with family members elsewhere. But now it seems that many of our students have returned to Fremont and re-enrolled. So we're very happy about that. We have been working very closely with families to help them to cope, I guess you'd say, with some of the regression they experienced during the pandemic. Coming back to school was hard for some of our kiddos. We have kindergartners and first and second graders who have literally never been in a classroom. So our teachers are trying to help those families adjust to the new normal, which we're excited about. Being back in school in person is wonderful, but it has presented challenges. But I'm happy to say our staff is working hard to address those challenges and support our families. I'm very proud of our staff. And finally, we are working hard on patterns of strength and weaknesses is the new methodology or the new model for determining specific learning disability for students. We're pretty excited about moving forward with that. That was a SELPA initiative many years ago. And of course, it was disrupted by being sort of catapulted into distance learning when we didn't have access to students physically to do the testing required to do PSW. So we are moving forward with that with a full plan for implementation in August of 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Fran. Kanika, did you raise your hand?
Yes, I did. So I just wanted to say thank you so much. This was wonderful to be back at Regional Policy Board meeting today. I'm excited to be a part of CAC as well. I had a quick question because this has been coming around and as you know, I sit in Fremont Council PTA this year, working with multiple units. And one of the constant discussions that's going on around all our PTAs with all families is that everybody is feeling the lack of community. And I think this is especially true for families with children with disabilities. And so I was wondering if any of our CAC programs would become in person. Are we able to think of some options by which we could host parent chats in person so we can all actually meet in flesh and blood versus on the Zoom? That would be great for community building. And if we could consider the picnic at the end of the year, which could also be something that would bring together our families back. So hopefully we'll be there at that time and June will look good for all of this. But that's the question that I had.
I think that's an excellent comment, and that would be something that certainly we could address now that we have some more membership within our CAC. I know, as you know, in previous years, we would have a movie night in October that was solely for the purpose of bringing families together to kind of enjoy time together. And we certainly can look to increase and add that. I'd love to talk more because one of the benefits these previous years of doing the Zoom sessions is that we've had much greater attendance for the information kinds of sharing things. But I think that you're right, Kanika, that there's possibly a place for both opportunities for people to meet together in person, as well as continuing our ed programs via Zoom.
Thanks, Karen. I'm sure you remember having been SELPA and SPED director in the past years. We have had these discussions about how could we do both formats for many years. And I guess we are right here. And in the last year, it looks like this is really coming together. And that would be an awesome opportunity for allowing families who want to come into meetings and also provide a safe space for families who feel like this is easier to do a Zoom. Attend some presentation by Zoom. So we could definitely, I'd be excited to explore a hybrid way of doing things.
Like it. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Great. All right. As we continue on, and I just also wanted to thank Fran again, wish you happy birthday, but this, I want to underscore for our directors and board members which you guys know so well. These are very tough times, in addition to kind of helping with this compassion fatigue that so many of our staff are feeling. Staff shortages are prevalent, and hiring and getting substitutes this year has been more difficult than ever. So I want to just applaud our directors who are really working tirelessly out there with a lot of staff shortages and sometimes shortages amongst their leadership teams. Sarah, can you give us a quick update?
I agree with everything that Fran said. It's nice to hear. We also are writing a CSACE plan. If you remember from board meetings, that is our disproportionality indicators. And part of that work for us is our MTSS work. We're in the second year of that. We're excited about it. We are adding in some anti-racist PD for our staff. And so that's been kind of work that we've embodied. As you know, a CSACE plan is a general ed plan, and I really feel like a strength in New Haven is the collaboration among the directors of teaching and learning. And to that extent, we've also created a parent learning portal. And CAC has been a part of that, as well as some of our general ed initiatives. And so I appreciate what you said, Kanika. And I really am interested in keeping the numbers. We have many times sat in this meeting talking about how do we get more families to attend. And we see numbers in the 50s or 60s in the last year. And so I'm very excited to report that. We also are in our second class of preschool inclusion and partnering with Kidango, which has been a huge challenge and highly rewarding. But new programs are hard for a reason. And so I really appreciate and thank that staff. We also are looking into a program that is partnered with SACE, which is our IEP program called Beyond SST, as a way to pull data from and keep track of our 504 plans, our SSTs, and our cost information, as well as keeping track of our intervention data. So I will definitely keep the directors updated on how well that works. That is scheduled to roll out this month. And last, I'm excited about our learning recovery dollars. I'm excited to put in those things. I agree with Fran. We are running interventions. We are really struggling with subs. So running interventions during the day or pulling people out has been hard. And really getting volunteers. I think that compassion fatigue that Karen mentioned is real. And we are certainly seeing that our certificated staff is just hesitant to volunteer. And so needing to figure out ways to partner with the SELPA, partner with each other, and reach out to get agency support for some of these interventions where normally we would be able to do some of them in-house is a really important part of that plan for us.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Both Sarah and Fran have been working on these CSACE plans. And again, it's important work because it's addressing disproportionality, which is, again, certain groups being overrepresented in maybe it's discipline or identification for with IEPs. But this work, I cannot, again, talk about how much these directors have put into this in terms of getting groups together, having stakeholder meetings, really digging deep and examining root causes, trying to flesh out how to then address those root causes, developing these plans, attaching money to it, and then reporting on the progress. So in addition to everything else they're doing as directors, this has been really big work, important work. Thank you both, Sarah and Fran, for all of that. Jan Newark was not identified for CSACE, but I know that Newark has also been very busy providing their services to students as well as working on their special education plan. Jan, do you have a few words?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. So, first and foremost, it was really wonderful to see students and staff back in person. As Fran and Sarah stated, it has presented some challenges. We have had a number of preschool students, particularly newcomers that have never ever been in school, so that creates a whole different learning environment and changes in staff and supporting of those students. Our focus this year at Newark Unified School District was really on reading. We know that the access for students with disabilities into general education classroom, rigorous instruction is really paramount to the work we do. It's an equity piece as well. So we've been providing professional development on a weekly basis for 2 reading programs and math programs that we've implemented. It's called Imagine Learning and Read 180 and System 44. Staff have been very, very solid in attending those. And we're hoping to get some really good outcomes for our students in accessing general education classrooms moving forward. We've also partnered with Santa Clara County Office of Education on inclusive practices. The focus for the upcoming school year, year 22-23, will be on the preschool. And like Sarah is in New Haven, we are hoping to partner with Kidango and do some co-teaching classes to support our students in the preschool level. We know that those students, if they get that access early, it can really benefit their education long term when they enter into kindergarten and beyond. We've also done some professional development for our service providers on UDL, Universal Design for Learning. That was also well received, and that's part of multi-tier system of support in ensuring our students get what they need and supporting both the general education staff and special education staff. We continue to work on our SEEP plan, our special education plan, and we are focusing on deliverables and what we're doing in making sure that that is implemented. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you so much, Jan, and it's really good to see you here too. I have checked our Google Doc, and it looks like there is no public comment on non-agenda items at this point. Is there any other comment from those attending this board meeting?
Not at this time, the document is blank.
Are there any other items from our board? All right, then I will conclude with our thought for the day for our regional policy board. And, you know, when I was kind of looking through things, there was just a bit of a feeling of overwhelmed and hopelessness, which is tough after all that we've been through. And I thought this was an interesting quote, and it said, "Sometimes good things fall apart so better things can fall together." And that was from Marilyn Monroe, which is an unusual source of a quote. But I think that there's a lot of truth in that. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with what Dr. Holland had shared about our narratives, that, you know what, sometimes good things do fall apart. And that's also because better things can fall together. And that I feel that we're all united here to seeing that better things come together. So without further ado, I do want to thank everyone who has stuck out the rest of our regional policy board meeting today. As noted before, our next meeting is scheduled for January 18th at 9 o'clock, which will be an in-person meeting in the board or in Fremont at 4210 Technology Drive at Fremont Unified School District. Without any further ado, then I will ask for if we have someone who can move that we adjourn our meeting at 10:45.
I move that we adjourn.
Thank you, Mark. And do we have a second? Okay. We may, are you still
I
on?
second.
Oh, thank you
I
so much,
second.
DJ. I appreciate that very much. All those in favor of concluding our meeting?
Aye.
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 And we will then conclude our meeting today at 11:45 with thanks and gratitude for all those participating.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
everyone.
Have a good day.
Thank you, Karen.
Yes.
Take care, everybody.
Yeah, talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Recording stopped.